Today we will be talking about ADHD, pregnancy, miscarriages, and when to wean your baby. You don't need to be afraid. You can handle this. And here's how you do it.
The Ask Dr. Mom Show.
Welcome to the Ask Dr. Mom Show, episode 9. We are filming early this week, so if you left a question under episode 8 and we haven't addressed it, please feel free to go ahead and put it under this episode. It may have posted after we started filming this one, so don't hesitate to put it up again. Hans, what do we have for question number 1?
Crystal Velasquez Rano says, help. We have a 10-year-old who is ADHD, was diagnosed at a very early age, recently put on meds. We have tried kids' fish oil, regular fish oil, and many different things for him. Nothing is seeming to work. My son gets angry and then very emotional. He gets made fun of all the time and his self-esteem has gone down so much. What can I do as a parent to help him, and what else can we try?
Crystal, I'm so sorry you're going through this and having such a difficult time. Anyone who knows me knows that this subject is very near and dear to my heart. This is something that I have dealt with my entire life, and I have several children who have faced these challenges. And I commend you for starting with the fish oil. The omegas are extremely important to brain development. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that scientists say our brain is not fully mature until the age of 25. So there are still a lot of things that you can do to help with your son's development. One of the very first things that I would take a look at is diet. We build life with life. So the first question I would ask myself is, how many live, fresh fruits and vegetables is my son getting every day, as opposed to fast or processed foods? The next concern that I would look at very closely is how many dyes and processed sugars is he coming in contact with. This book, Disconnected Kids, was written by Dr. Robert Melillo. In this book, he addresses ADHD and multiple other challenges that a lot of children are facing today. And I want to read just a short little piece out of it today to share with you some of his thoughts on the causes of this problem. He says, walk around any neighborhood in the late afternoon and chances are you'll see a lot of things. Trees, cars, houses, sidewalks. What you won't see, however, are many kids outside playing. Where you'll find them, though, is inside watching television, playing computer games, or lazing in a chair text messaging their friends. This is about the worst thing they could be doing for their growing brains. The questions that I always get when I'm talking to educators and parents are, why? Why did this happen to my child? Answering these questions isn't always that easy, not because I don't have an explanation. I do. But because so many people are confused and misinformed about the nature of neurological childhood disorders. This is quite unfortunate because it only adds to the anxiety and despair of those trying to deal with these conditions at home and at school. Now, later on in this chapter, after a little bit more explanation, he actually lists what he sees as the causes of so many children dealing with these disorders. And his list is lack of physical exercise, overweight and obesity, absentee parenting, television and computer games, stressful pregnancies and births, stressful lifestyles, environmental toxins, and inadequate nutrition. So, going off of what Dr. Melillo is saying, along with my own personal experience, the very first thing I would look at is diet. The second thing I would look at is exercise. How much physical exercise is my child actually getting? The third thing that I would try to do is to channel all of this energy into something positive. And I think this would be extremely important in your son's case, because if his self-esteem is already taking a hard hit like this, it really helps if they can be involved in something that they're good at and where they can build their self-confidence. Along with that, I would probably supplement with something like the Kids Life Focus, which is an herbal supplement. I would continue with the fish oil or a good flax oil so that all of those omegas are in place. Once you look at just a few of these simple things, diet, exercise, supplementation, I think you'll start seeing major changes. And once the foundation's in place, then you can begin to fine-tune it even more so that your son can be successful and have a strong self-esteem as he goes into adulthood. Okay, Hans, what do we have? Question number 2.
Okay, question 2 is from Melissa. She says, "Hi, Dr. Mom. I'm 17 weeks in my 7th pregnancy. My last 4 pregnancies ended in miscarriage, with 2 of those mid-second trimester, so I'm considered high risk. I'm trying to balance being extremely cautious and also active enough to keep baby and myself healthy to prepare for delivery. What advice would you recommend in finding the right balance?"
Melissa, I'm so sorry for your loss. Having suffered several miscarriages myself, I know how devastating this can be. Unfortunately, since I don't know your age or the circumstances that were surrounding those miscarriages, I'm not quite sure what advice to offer. So let me share what I used to recommend for my ladies when I had my midwife practice. And then maybe you can look at this list, compare it to what you're doing, and hopefully find some help. When I had my midwife practice, I had several lists that I would give my moms. One of them was for their diet. I asked all of my moms to make at least 50% of their diet live, meaning fresh fruits and vegetables. We build life with life. And when you're pregnant, you are definitely in construction mode and building a new human body. So I wanted to make sure that they were getting plenty of fresh, live fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, sprouts, those types of things in their diet. Along with the diet, I wanted to make sure that they were getting plenty of fresh water to drink. So I would ask them to get at least 2 quarts of fresh water every day. Now, as far as supplements go, I wanted them to be on a natural prenatal supplement. So something like the Mama Bear prenatals. Along with that, I would ask them to take 2 capsules of wheat germ oil morning and night up until the last 6 weeks of their pregnancy, and then I would have them drop to 1 capsule morning and night. The reason for that is, as I was tweaking my lists and experimenting a little bit, I found that if they stayed with 2 capsules of wheat germ oil twice a day up until their delivery, we ended up building such a healthy placenta that quite often it would not be ready to stop doing what it was doing. And I more than once had to wait up to 3 hours for the placenta to release. I found that if we reduced the wheat germ oil in the last 6 weeks, then when the babies were born, the placenta was ready to let go and we didn't have that delay. I also asked my moms to take 1 tablespoon of liquid chlorophyll morning and evening. This was to help build strong blood and to help them to not become anemic. Along with that, I asked them to drink 1 quart of red raspberry leaf tea a day. I would quite often suggest that they make the tea in the morning, put it in the fridge, and then they could enjoy iced tea throughout the day. I used to ask them to also add in a trace mineral supplement because I found that it was so beneficial for varicose veins. However, we have now included the trace minerals into the Mama Bear prenatals. So if they are using those, they would not need to add additional trace minerals. Along with diet and supplements, there was also an exercise program. I wanted them to do 25 pelvic rocks every day. I asked them to get in the habit of doing Kegel exercises throughout the day. And thirdly, I wanted them to get out and walk 1 mile every day. There were multiple reasons for that. One is for the exercise. The other was to get out into the fresh air and breathe deeply. And thirdly, I wanted them to have quiet time every day where they could release their stress and talk to this baby, to let this baby know how much it's loved, how much it's wanted, and how anxious they are to have their child here with them. So I hope in going over this list, it might help with your question. Okay, Hans, what do we have for question 3?
Okay, 3rd question is from Edie. When is a good time to transition my baby from breast milk to solids? With what foods do you start, commercial or homemade?
Edie, in my experience, every baby is different. So having had as many as I did, it was never exactly the same with each one of them. Typically, by the time they're 6 months old, they're usually trying to reach for whatever I'm eating, and they may not be sleeping as many hours at night as they were previously. These are all kind of signs that tell you they're ready for something a little more solid. And so what I have always suggested was start with fruit. So, and I would usually use whatever I had fresh at home. So if I had ripe bananas, I would just mash them up and start with something like that. The reason I started with fruit is because it is the easiest food to digest. And since their system isn't used to anything solid, I started with what would be easiest for them. As far as the time to wean goes, Dr. Christopher used to teach that when the stomach teeth and the eye teeth come in, those are the pointed fang teeth. When those teeth come in, which is usually around 18 months, that's an indication that they are now ready to digest their own food and they're ready to be weaned and go on solids. Now, I understand that for a lot of women, it's extremely difficult to keep enough milk flowing to nurse all the way to 18 months. For some women, they are able to handle it and actually will nurse up to 2 years or beyond, which is absolutely fantastic. If you are one of those women who are having a difficult time keeping your milk in for a year and a half, then my strong suggestion would be try to go for a year. If you can make it for a year, you have given your child an incredible foundation to launch off of. 6 months, the first 6 months, is the most important time. And any time up to 6 months, I would consider crucial if you are able to give them anything at all. So I hope that helps. Again, it really depends on every child because every child's a little bit different. But in my opinion, the longer you can nurse, up to 2 years, the better. And usually around 6 months is a good time to start giving them a few solids that they can easily digest and take care of. This has been the Ask Dr. Mom Show, and I'm Sandra Ellis. Thank you for joining us.